This video contains spoilers for WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, Moon Knight, and Ms. Marvel. The MCU hasn't exactly had the best track record when it comes to its Disney Plus originals. While Star Wars has had pretty great success with the likes of The Mandalorian and the final Clone Wars season, each MCU project has been met with varying responses, and most of them have been divisive at best. For some, WandaVision can be regarded as a terrific look at grief, full of fun comic book superhero episodes, and for others it could be seen as a misguided mess of a piece of media. It's me, I'm others. In a show like What If, the response ranged from people enjoying the fun circumstances the show gives us, and other people pretending that character consistency is important in an episode where the MCU is overrun by zombies. Seriously, it is okay to just have fun, guys. Perhaps the biggest and most divisive show for the MCU, though, came earlier this year in the form of Moon Knight. Subtle plug, there are reviews for all 6 episodes on my website, written by a good friend of mine. Okay, I'll move on. Most people do agree that Oscar Isaac's performance as the main character is fantastic, but a lot of people are split on whether or not that makes up for the numerous flaws, including the villain, and some people don't like the Egyptian gods. Some people are just okay with the mythological take on Moon Knight, while others really wish they'd focus more on the grounded psychological side. And I'm probably the only person in existence that actually likes the finale to Moon Knight. All of this build-up is just to say that being the best MCU show really isn't a high bar to me. But don't let this point distract you from the fact that I think the topic of today's video, Ms. Marvel, is still really good and a great addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The success of Ms. Marvel comes from 3 things, and 2 of them are really connected. The first one is Kamala Khan, and the second is the performance by Iman Vellani. You really wouldn't be able to guess that this was her first major role because she just steps into it so well and delivers better performances in this show than many other MCU veterans. That's not to say that the writing for her isn't also to be praised, because Kamala is a very likable character even outside of the performance. The fangirl angle they go with her could be considered annoying, but I'm very surprised at how well handled it was. It's just endearing to me and taken in a direction that doesn't even make Kamala's obsession with superheroes the focal point of her character. Sure, it's why she wants to be a superhero herself at the end of the day, but there's way more going on with her, and that's something that I'm really happy with. Seeing her go through the entire series and learn about her heritage was very exciting to watch, and I'm a pretty big fan of the detour the show takes to Karachi. It's a great way that the show really gets in tune with what it's trying to present, and I think it handles it better than something like Moon Knight did with the Egyptian mumbo jumbo throughout the entire show. Sure, some of the elements of Kamala's heritage aren't handled very well, but I'll talk about that in a moment. The show's visual style is the third main reason that I really love it. From the very first moments of the first episode, it's entirely evident that the show is just a different breed from the rest of the MCU, and especially from the rest of these Marvel projects. It's shot in such a unique and exciting way, and the visual identity is just so creative and fun, and when you couple that with Kamala's character and Iman's performance, again, it's just such an easy show to fall in love with in just the first 10 minutes. I mean, just look at the way the show presents texting. This is the coolest shit ever. Or several other shots and moments from the first episode, like when they incorporate like drawings and art styles. It's just really fun. All of the supporting characters serve very strong roles too. I truly can't speak for the authenticity when it comes to the show because I am a white man from North Carolina, but I really can say that I found the way the show presented Kamala's family to be extremely interesting and very fun to watch. It's probably amazing for people to see someone like them in a Marvel movie or show, and likewise I think it's very exciting to see someone who doesn't look like me for a change. I really enjoyed seeing a different culture highlighted in a superhero property. It also just helps that Kamala's relationship with her family throughout the show is something that completely grounds it, even when the problems with the writing arises in later episodes. Bruno and Nakia provide a lot of great character moments with Kamala. Nakia definitely gets a lot less time to shine than the rest of the supporting cast, but she's still a really enjoyable character, and I'm glad she's here. Her subplot running for the mosque board was very fun in episode 2, and it just added a lot of enjoyable moments to the show's early episodes. Bruno is a pretty stereotypical guy in the chair type character, but I think he still adds a lot, especially when it comes to his friendship with Kamala, and the little romance thing they have going is pretty cute at times. Both Kamala's parents also just have amazing conversations with her throughout the entire show, and I love her brother so much. He's such a fun character, and the actor who plays him is extremely charismatic. Now, the show really isn't perfect. Try as I might to convince you that it is, there are definitely quite a few issues with it. The biggest one is obviously the villains. The decision to change Kamala's power set is one that I don't inherently mind, but it's one that I really don't like the reasoning for. Changing her powers just so she can fight bad guys in space in the Captain Marvel sequel is really lame, but that being said, the way they handle her powers really isn't terrible. I like some of the action scenes she gets with them, and I think that her like jumping on little purple light steps through the city leads to some really fun moments. I just wish the villains connected to her powers were anything other than terrible. The clandestines or Jinn or whatever you want to call them just are not enjoyable villains to watch. Their motives are painfully simple, and the amount of time they're given really doesn't line up with what they actually add to the show. There are glimmers of interesting things here and there, like how Najma presents herself as family to Kamala only to turn on her and view her as just a tool to get home. And I like how Kamala resigns herself to just thinking she could never be a superhero and that all she's good for is a vehicle to get the clandestines home. These are compelling plot beats and they lead to really strong scenes, but they don't really make up for how nothing these antagonists end up being. A big example of this is in episode 5, which is one of the most conflicting episodes of the show for me. On the one hand, it does lead to Kamala's great-grandmother having some fantastic moments during the partition. I love the scenes with Aisha, and I think her romance with Kamala's great-grandfather was great. I also love Kamala being the stars that her grandmother saw during the night of partition, which they set up earlier. It's all just such a cool thing to do. Unfortunately, though, the other half of the episode wraps up these clandestines in the most laughable way that you probably could have ever done. Very little weight is held during this plot, and it almost makes me wonder if we even needed them as villains anyway. Luckily, this means that the finale can focus on the better villains of the series, which is the Department of Damage Control. Now, don't get me wrong, these guys aren't great either, and there's nothing super exciting going on here, but seeing Damage Control just needlessly prosecute Kamala's community and Kamala having to stand up and protecting her families in the finale led to a really compelling way to close out the series. One probably could and absolutely should wonder why this wasn't the main plot of the show, but it's too late to consider that now. Honestly, I'm just glad that they did wrap it up like this in the finale. I still do love the scenes in episode 4 with Kamala and Karachi, and the Red Daggers are a really cool addition to the universe. It just sucks that by the end they feel more like a detour than something that was imperative to the story being told. I was also pretty fearful in the finale with the character of Kamran. Kamran didn't really add much to the series for me beyond some cute scenes with Kamala having a crush on him, but by the finale the character really turned around and I was happy to see where he ended up. I was just so scared that he would be the final villain of the show, and so I'm glad that they didn't go that route and they took him in a much more interesting direction. Really, I just wish this show was longer. I think it's still great as is, but it truly could have been even better with 8 or even 10 episodes to tell its story rather than the measly 6. When you have so little time, episodes like 4 and 5 feel useless, even though in concept they add enough to warrant existing. You also have the issue of episode 1, 2, and 3 not really doing much to progress the main story forward, and instead are focused on character moments throughout the show. These character moments are terrific, and they're what genuinely help this show be as good as it is to me, but at times it almost makes me just, again, wish the show was longer, or that the clandestines didn't exist so all we had was building up to the Damage Control finale. Perhaps, at the end of the day, what truly makes Ms. Marvel my favorite of the MCU offerings is that it's not really trying to be about much at all. So many of the prior MCU outings attempt to offer some deeper meaning, but in the end fumble the bag by disrespecting what they set up. WandaVision attempts to tell a story about grief and just fails to follow through on making it compelling, as the finale deals with 2 witches fighting in the sky of the city. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier tries to tackle modern political climates in the most harebrained way. Loki is a fence sitter when it comes to whether or not free will is important, and Moon Knight tries to tackle the topic of mental health, but it's in the same show where there's a kaiju fight between Egyptian gods. The 3 best MCU shows in my opinion, this, What If, and Hawkeye, are all my favorites for the simple fact that they don't try to be about anything they shouldn't be to the point where it undermines the entire show. Sure, Ms. Marvel attempts to inform people about the partition, and it's about Kamala standing up for her community, and Damage Control's racist prosecution of her community, but at the end of the day, it's just a superhero show about Kamala Khan becoming a superhero and her friends and family that she works with along the way. I just find this to be a really fun show, and I really need a season 2. I understand a lot of the issues that Ms. Marvel comic fans can have with the show, and I totally get that, and if you hate the show because of those changes, absolutely understood. But I do hope this video shines some light on why I personally really like this show, and why I'm very happy that it's part of the MCU. If you want more in-depth thoughts on every episode of Season 1, I have a category on my website where I reviewed every single episode each week, so a link to that will be in the description. Go ahead and check it out. And thank you all so much for watching. Go down in the comments and let me know what you thought about Ms. Marvel. And let me know what you thought your favorite of these MCU Disney Plus shows are. I'm very curious to hear that. And I will see you all in my next video.